David, Carlyle has hundreds of investments, more than any other private equity firm by far, which gives you a unique window onto the economy. So for starters, what is the outlook starting with the U.S. economy?
Well, you're correct. We do own actually 231 companies around the world, which is a great many companies to own, either controlling stakes or partial stakes, and that does give us a good window on what's happening. But predicting the economy or knowing what the outlook is going to be is very difficult. Based on what we see today, we think the U.S. economy is coming back somewhat slowly. We'll probably grow at about 2 to 3% this year. I don't think we'll grow anywhere near where the emerging markets are likely to grow. But the most important thing to remember is the United States economy went through more or less of a heart attack. And a heart attack is not fatal these days. A heart attack is something we can correct. But we went through the greatest recession we've had since the Great Depression. And although we're technically out of the recession now, technically out of it, we still have massive unemployment. We have unemployment at really effectively 16.5% if you count people who are looking for jobs, but without part-time jobs now, but want full-time jobs. We also have a very high deficit that's likely to be around $1.6 trillion a year, and we've got about $14 trillion of debt on our balance sheet, not counting unfunded pension liabilities for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So we have a lot of problems we have to work our way out of before we're really back to an economy that we can be proud of again.
So does this suggest that you are going to be doing most of your investing outside the United States?
No, we are investing probably as much outside of the United States as we are in the United States, and that's probably different from most private equity firms that are based here. And we do think the emerging markets offer enormous opportunities because of the growth and the size of those markets. China, India, and Brazil are unrivaled opportunities now for people like us. But the United States is still the place where you have the greatest rule of law, greatest transparency, the greatest governance, greatest opportunities, the greatest chief executives to run these companies. So it's still a terrific place to invest. But you have to remember that growth won't be very good, and therefore you should adjust your pricing to reflect that.
Yeah. I have to ask you about something that we hear a lot of fears expressed about, and that's the possibility of inflation in the U.S., possibly very significant inflation. And it may be a couple years down the road, but there are a lot of people really worried.
Well, I am an expert on that. When I worked in the Carter White House, I got it to 19%. So it's very difficult to do. And I've
unmatched, I think.
Unmatched in my lifetime. And I've often said to people in the Federal Reserve, if you're worried about deflation, bring me back because I can cure that problem. But in terms of where inflation is likely to go, I think it is likely, given the enormous debts we have, an enormous deficit, it's likely that inflation will go above where it's been the last 20 years. When Paul Volcker came in, he really killed the inflation dragon. And so over the last 20-plus years, we've been around 2.5% inflation, more or less, annualized. I think today we should see inflation probably hanging around 2 to 3%, but I suspect in the next 2 or 3 years you'll see inflation go to 4 to 5%. As the excess capacity is absorbed and as people begin to want higher wages and as we begin to pay off this debt, I think it will have the effect of producing inflation in 4 or 5% range.